It was the Zach Calzada show on Saturday afternoon, and the Aggies pulled away in the second half for a 34 to nothing victory over New Mexico. Lot to get to on the show. This is the Texas A&M New Mexico postgame show on the Voice of College Football. Again, Texas A&M in their final game before opening conference play next week. Opens with a pair of touchdowns to take a 14-0 lead on their first two drives. A little bit inconsistent after that, but ends up with a 34 to nothing victory in their first start under Zach Calzada. We'll talk more about his performance, what Jimbo Fisher had to say. The defense putting up their first shutout since 2016 were really impressive on Saturday morning. Even against New Mexico, it's tough to get a shutout, but Texas A&M did exactly that. We'll discuss their performance. And Damon Demas finally gets his first catch, and it goes 70 yards for a touchdown. We'll talk about him and the rest of the young receivers that played. There was quite a bit of rotation on Saturday, which I know Texas A&M fans had been clamoring for. But to give a little recap, so Texas A&M scores 14 points on their first four plays from scrimmage on Saturday to take a quick 14 to nothing lead, and then it was a bit of the same story of sputtering on offense, punted on their next two drives, followed that up with a 12-play, 60-yard drive to take a 21 to nothing lead early in the second quarter. Added another field goal late in the first half to take a 24 to nothing halftime lead, and then it was a little bit of the same. Just kind of a little bit stuck in neutral for most of the second half. But again, in his first start for Texas A&M, Zach Calzada finishes 19 of 33 for 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Came out in a really good rhythm. Texas A&M got him going with a couple quick passes. Started with a 16-yard completion to Chase Lane. One play later, found Devon Achane for a 26-yard touchdown. And then on the second drive, found Damon Demas for a 70-yard touchdown. And just like that, you thought it was going to be a great day offensively for Texas A&M. But starting there on the offensive side of the ball, it was a bit more of a struggle for Texas A&M, especially along the offensive line, which is concerning heading into next week with SEC play beginning against Arkansas, who's certainly going to provide a much stiffer test, especially along the defensive line, than New Mexico will. And Jimbo Fisher addressed that in the post-game press conference, saying they've simply just got to be more physical. It comes down to communication, got to pick up blitzes, stunts, gave them a lot of trouble. They were without Layden Robinson in this game, who sat out after being nicked up against Colorado. So he sat this one out. Kenyon Green moved over to right guard. Blake Traynor saw some time at right tackle, struggled. But really the whole offensive line struggled, and it comes down to not being physical enough. And that was the big message heading into next week from Jimbo Fisher, is simply put, it's time for the offensive line to start clicking now. This is big boy football, and there's going to be some challenges coming up. So Jimbo Fisher was certainly not completely satisfied after this one. I know 34 to nothing is a convincing victory, but he's looking ahead to the SEC play beginning. And simply put, he said they're a very average football team right now, and he's right based on what we've seen the first 3 weeks of the year. Kent State got off to a slow start, obviously pulled away in the second half. Against Colorado, were sputtering, especially offensively, as we covered last week, for most of the game until the fourth quarter started to come alive. And then today, it was another case of everybody's kind of taking turns. At times it was the offensive line. Zach Calzada had his mistake in the third quarter where he forced the ball that he should have just thrown away, ended up being in an interception. And then at times it was, receivers dropping balls, running backs. They got Isaiah Spiller going this afternoon. He finished with 15 carries for 17 yards and a touchdown. He was excellent. Couldn't really get Devon Achane going in the running game. He only finished with 9 carries for 29 yards. Got nicked up late in the game, but Jimbo Fisher said there was no concern there as he came out of the tent, gave him a thumbs up. So he should be good to go for next week against Arkansas. But simply put, the offensive line was a bit of the story of the game. Wanted to see them take some strides this week, especially coming off the game against Colorado, and didn't really do that. There were procedural penalties, had 3 false start penalties, just not able to finish blocks. And as Jimbo Fisher said, one of the things that he wanted to see in this game that he didn't was just simply moving people in the running game. He's seen it before. He's seen it in practice. And didn't get it done. And that was, I think, disappointing against New Mexico and leaves you with a little bit of concern heading into conference play with Arkansas, with Mississippi State. That's an area that's going to have to get cleaned up very, very quickly. You could tell there was a sense of urgency from Jimbo Fisher that the physicality is going to ratchet up quite a bit heading into next week.